his first major speech since leaving the White House, George W. Bush spoke of writing his memoirs to an audience in Canada. When the history of this administration is written, at least there's an authoritarian voice saying exactly what happened. That authoritarian history could be written a lot sooner than expected. Our third story, the George W. Bush Presidential Library raised $100 million in 100 days. And the battle to secure the Bush legacy has begun. A third of the projected $300 million needed for the George W. Bush Presidential Center at Southern Methodist University has already been secured. Time magazine reports that the Bush Library fundraising effort is being organized like a modern political campaign. With a National Finance Committee in place, the Bush team has also recruited co-chairs from all 50 states, 100 in total. But unlike a political campaign, contributors can donate unrestricted amounts of money, and they can do so anonymously. One Arkansas financier remarked about the former president, he struck a very positive nerve among a lot of financial sources across the country. To put the enormity of this financial feat into perspective, consider this. Organizers of the William Jefferson Clinton Presidential Library had set a goal of raising $100 million within the first year President Clinton left office. That goal was not met due to the fallout from Clinton's 11th hour pardons, proving that low approval ratings, leftover scandal, and policy blowback accompanied by a recession of historic proportions has not hindered the Bush fundraising frenzy. One Library Foundation spokesman noted, considering the current economic climate, we're very pleased with where we are. Time to call in Jim Moore, Huffington Post contributor and the editor of MoreThink.com. And Jim, good evening.
Hi, David.
$100 million in 100 days. The Bush tax cuts benefited the wealthiest Americans, or his base, as the former president likes to refer to them. Are these donations a form of payback to Bush's economic policies?
I don't know, but the economy and the tax cuts and all of the things that he did that were beneficial to big business, multinational corporations, defense contractors, all of those things, wealthy CEOs, he certainly has created a climate under his administration where it was easier to make these types of donations. And it's no secret where the money for this thing is coming from. It's going to be coming from all those big corporations, whether it's Halliburton or many of the other multinationals. And you're looking at a lot of money that's going to keep flowing, and people are going to say, it's anonymous. And the curious thing you have to ask is, if you're proud of what your president did that you donated to support, why not publicly state that you're giving to this library?
The fact that Bill Clinton, an expert at fundraising himself, could not raise that amount of money in a year due to political scandal is donating to the Bush Library a way that those who are unhappy with the current administration can retaliate.
Well, it certainly is something that's going to keep them in good stead. And I also think, with the Bush people, but I also think that this is a part of many of these corporations were associated, and many of these individuals, wealthy individuals, have been associated with all of the things that have gone bad. And they might just be trying to buy into and invest in a different version of history that they hope this library presents. If you're Halliburton and you have a display in the library that shows how the Americans gloriously rebuilt the economy and use defense contractors to do it, maybe that's something you want to invest in.
There's currently a bill pending in front of the U.S. Senate. It would require that donors who give $200 or more, that those names be disclosed 4 times a year. How would that affect fundraising efforts in a case like this?
It's hard to know, but I think it will have a major inhibiting effect because George Bush, thus far, is publicly very radioactive. Even here in Texas, he's persona non grata, and none of the people running for statewide office in Texas have asked him to help publicly in any way. They haven't sought endorsements, and we have some pretty significant races coming down here. I think it would have the same effect on fundraising. People who are inclined to give anonymously might not want to be publicly associated with the controversies of this administration that just left office.
Library planners have insisted that the Bush Center will not be used to defend or promote something that President Bush did in the past. But if you were among those who donated millions of dollars, wouldn't you want the library and your money to essentially reflect positively on Bush administration policies? And to what extent will these donors essentially influence the way some of this is presented?
I think that that's at the heart of the entire matter, David. That's the most salient question out of all of this. Does this money influence how history is reported. The president keeps saying that history will judge, history will judge. Well, in this case, I think it has to be viewed that the history that's coming out of here is prejudicial because of these donations being secretive. And whether it's a Bush library or the Clinton library or any other library, I think the public, even though these are private institutions, has a right to know who's giving money. Otherwise, we can't trust what we learn from these libraries, and we need to have that if we're going to value what we get there.
And there's another Bush, Jeb Bush, we mentioned earlier in the broadcast. Is it possible that some of this is possibly to sort of keep connections to the Bush family?
I don't think there's any question that they're maintaining those fiduciary relationships with all the people that have enabled their growth and their climb in American politics and American finance, and this is a big part of it.
James Moore, contributor to the Huffington Post and founder of MoreThink.com. James, thanks for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, David.